Thank you very much. First of all, my deep apologies. The flight did come in a little bit late. We are in Uttar Pradesh, right in the midst of a massive yatras that are happening in different parts of Uttar Pradesh. I was in a part quite far away from Delhi. I returned last night, and then I was asked to be here. So please do excuse me for coming a bit late. But the point that we had to put before you is so important, is so significant, that I was persuaded that it's important to come personally. It's not just enough that we give you a printed note expressing, but that will be available. That will be in translated form. It's available to you, so it'll go to the largest number of people here. See, what we have to talk to you about is something that happened some years ago. But the impact of what happened some years ago is continuing today. I must say that it's the people of Tamil Nadu who have risen over and above what happened in Delhi, and for which the rumble or the earthquake would have been felt in Tamil Nadu as well, because many senior leaders of Tamil Nadu were dragged into what happened in Delhi, and it created enormous amount of discomfiture to people personally, people in public life who had served and wanted to continue serving with honesty and dedication. That it put huge question marks on them, but not just on important public figures from Tamil Nadu, but on many other important people who were ministers in the government under Dr. Manmohan Singh. I have no hesitation in saying that it's difficult to find a person of the level of integrity and humanity that is exhibited by Dr. Manmohan Singh, and I think we can all join in a prayer for his long life. He's just recovered from a prolonged bout of dengue fever. He was hospitalized. He came back home only yesterday, and I expect that we can all join in prayer for his long life. So what we are here to talk about is essentially the 2G so-called scandal. And I say it's a so-called scandal because it was publicized as a scandal. It was seen as the ultimate judgment upon the Congress party and the UPA government. And it created enormous amount of discomfiture and pain, distress to the Congress party, and indeed to the country. Congress would have suffered. We would take it as part of the manner of politics that we are all up against today in this country. But that along with the Congress, the country suffered, and the suffering that the country had to face is continuing to this day. Although we know that despite huge difficulties, okay, I think that might be better for you that I have a mic. Despite huge difficulties and despite a lot of telecom companies failing, some of them are even now in insolvency process, the government of India had to ultimately admit that the telecom industry was in trouble. Although the Supreme Court has said that the amounts that had to be paid under Supreme Court judgments, those amounts cannot be waived and cannot be deferred for payment beyond a certain period, the government of India had to finally accept that those payments that have to be made will destroy the telecom industry completely. Now, that may be an issue of mismanaging the telecom industry, But the fatal blow or near fatal blow that was given to the telecom industry was with the 2G matter, which was then called a scandal. But now, as I will tell you the details of how things have unfolded, the scandal is not the 2G matter, but the scandal is the manner in which people were dealt with in the 2G matter. Now, as we stand today, although the Supreme Court had monitored the proceedings in the 2G matter, we know that Judge O.P. Saini had finally given a long judgment, a huge long judgment, in which he came to the conclusion that there was no shred of evidence to prove the case against the people who had to face trial. Now, who will apologize for this? It's another matter that appeals have been filed and appeals are lying. CBI appeals are today pending in the Delhi High Court. But I have confidence in the belief that the Delhi High Court cannot possibly do anything more than what Judge Saini did, who had the benefit of all documents and records in front of him. So why are we bringing up this topic today? Something that goes back many years. We are raising this topic today because an affidavit has been filed by the former CAG. The former CAG, Mr. Vinod Rai, who was at the center of the entire trouble that took place, whose report was the basis on which the allegations were made, and Supreme Court was persuaded to look into the matter, and then the Supreme Court handed over the matter for trial to a district and sessions judge. On 18th of October 2021, the former CAG had tendered an unconditional apology by way of an affidavit, a sworn affidavit, to Shri Sanjay Nirupam, a member of our party in Maharashtra, that whatever had been said by Mr. Vinod Rai at the time of the 2G issue, as indeed when he wrote his book and published his book about his work as the CAG of India, that at that point the impression that he gave and the words that he spoke, that Sanjay Nirupamji had tried to intercede with him to keep out the name of the then Prime Minister, Dr. Manmohan Singh, in the 2G spectrum case, that he today unconditionally admits is untrue. Untrue. Now, for a person of constitutional position, who's held a constitutional position, to now be saying that what I said was untrue. He's not said that what I said gave the wrong impression. He's not said that what I said was taken out of context. He has not said that what I said was perhaps inaccurate, was perhaps not what I intended to say, but he's actually admitted that what he said was untrue. In other words, what was happening at that time was that all morality, all honesty, all decency had been thrown to the wind because people were playing a game at the cost of the Congress party and reputations of Congress leaders and leaders of other political parties who were serving in the government, who were in the alliance, UPA alliance, and those leaders have finally been vindicated in your state, in the elections of your state, vindicated by the judgment of Judge O.P. Saini in the Delhi Sessions Court, and now stand vindicated by the affidavit that Shri Vinod Rai has authored. Now, what is it, just to remind you what the 2G spectrum issue was. The 2G spectrum issue essentially was that the manner in which 2G spectrum had been given had cost 1.76 lakh crores to the exchequer. In other words, that was the greatest loot, according to them, against the resources of the country, of the nation. And you remember that they had paralyzed Delhi, virtually paralyzed Delhi. I was then in the government, and I remember that President Putin was visiting Delhi, and various other functionaries from different countries were visiting. But Delhi was paralyzed because at that time a group of people who I will indicate to you soon as to what kind of position they finally acquired were holding processions and holding demonstrations and holding long fast unto death at a very important part in Delhi. Now, this was when 1.76 lakhs crores was said to have been looted. Even then we kept saying, how do you calculate 1.76 lakhs? If tax relief is given for any reason, you can't claim that to be a tax relief that has caused loss or damage to the country. Tax reliefs are given. Some new industry is set up, 5-year tax moratorium is given. That cannot be calculated as the tax lost for 5 years. That manner of calculation is patently wrong and dishonest, we kept saying, and nobody was prepared to listen. People calculated different figures. People calculated 30,000 crores to 1,76,000 crores, etc. They kept arguing about the figures, but nobody was prepared to talk about the principle that what had happened was in no way unlawful, and in no way that could lead to legal proceedings. And that's what Judge Saini finally had. We kept saying, and even in the Joint Parliamentary Committee, this matter was discussed, where it was made clear that you cannot say that there was a loss to the exchequer, but the CAG obviously kept and held his ground despite the fact that someone serving under him who had done the actual calculation had already put up a report to him saying that 1.76 lakh crores is false. It is not correct. It cannot be argued that this money has been lost. And instead of accepting that sage and sensible advice, that person, Shri R.P. Singh, who was the Director General Audit P&T, which is Post in Telecommunications, in the CAG office, was removed from his charge instead of his very sensible report being followed. Now, shall we just go on to the actors who were involved? Actors who appeared on stage, actors who waved the Indian flag, actors who raised allegations against, as I said, people of unimpeachable reputation. And these actors were General V.K. Singh, and you know that his grievance must have been that he had asked for an extension to his service on the basis of his age or his date of birth, and that could not have been granted under the rules. So he had a grievance. He was there. Srimati Kiran Bedi was there, who was hoping and looking for a political career, finally put up as a face of a Chief Minister's face in Delhi, not having succeeded as a Chief Minister's face in Delhi. She came in your neighborhood, in Puducherry. And I need not tell people of Tamil Nadu what she did in Puducherry, and therefore that's the second actor. The third actor was Baba Ramdev, who's done rather well, only one who seems to have done rather well. His business has flourished many times over, and of course, he continues on the path of success. Sri Anna Hazare, who we all respect and did respect, where is he? I might ask. I had the good fortune to call upon him privately when all this was going on, and I found him a very, very likable person. But unfortunately, he had painted himself into a corner, and having painted himself into a corner, having seen that kind of adulation and that kind of public support, I believe that he didn't know how to manage and handle it. And though he kept saying that he did not agree with what a lot of his colleagues were doing, and he was willing, he said to me, he was willing to have an open conversation with Pranab Mukherjee, who's now no longer with us, but whom he said he respected and was willing to go and talk to them personally, but his colleagues didn't allow him to do so. But where is he today? If there was an issue at the time of 2G spectrum, there is an issue today. But where is he? Why does he not ask questions about what is going wrong today? And then finally there was Shri Arvind Kejriwal, who has apologized to everybody that he maligned. He's apologized to everybody that he's maligned, whose pictures he used to put up, and he used to have people put up shoes, garlands of shoes on their pictures. Now Mr. Arvind Kejriwal has become Chief Minister. I think that you may not have heard, I certainly have not heard, whatever happened to the Lokpal. Government of India appointed a Lokpal. We don't know who the Lokpal is. We don't know where the Lokpal is. We don't know what the Lokpal does. The party of Mr. Kejriwal had his internal Lokpal, Lokayuk, internally, a person of some integrity and stature. Where is he? What is this office now doing? Why is the Lokpal now not an issue? And there was a time when you couldn't drink, you couldn't eat, you couldn't breathe, you couldn't speak, you couldn't sleep, you couldn't be awake without Arvind Kejriwal screaming Lokpal in your ear. Now, so this is the kind of things that people have achieved for themselves, but what has been achieved for the country, I think you only know. Runaway prices as we see today, the kind of corruption that has never been seen in this country today, and no accountability, no questions being asked, nobody saying that we will go on hunger strike, nobody calling up and saying that we'll follow this from day to day, no cases being filed. Where are the institutions? Where is the CBI? So the enormous loss that was caused to India was caused by a case on which Judge O.P. Saini, Special Judge O.P. Saini of the CBI, in his 1,522 pages judgment said, and I quote, absolutely no hesitation in holding that the prosecution has miserably failed to prove any charge against any of the accused made in its well choreographed charge sheet. Can there be a greater rejection? Can there be a greater critical assessment of a charge sheet that has been filed against public figures? Now this conspiracy has cost India dear, you know that, and while this conspiracy has cost India dear, we discover that the same gentleman, Shri Vinod Rai, who wrote that book about the 2G spectrum, he was also involved in the scrutiny of banks in our country, and 13,500 crore have disappeared from PNB Bank. That, to say the least, is a fraud, and thousands of crores have been lost in bank frauds in the incidents in which Shri Nirav Modi, Shri Mehul Choksi, Shri Lalit Modi and Shri Vijay Mallya have all escaped abroad. Despite Mr. Vinod Rai being the chairman of the Banking Recruitment Board, not a word. Apology, yes. Regret, yes, for having said what he has said, but no regret to the cost that it has made India suffer, and not a word on why the banks have suffered this fraud. So, ultimately, I don't know if the anchors have read this or not, or are they very selective in what they read and what they see and what they hear. But the anchors of our channels that were screaming murder when we were in government, they were screaming that all hell has broken loose, don't even seem to whisper that there is some reply, some accountability, and something that is owed to this country. What is owed to this country, fine, I believe, is an apology. It's time that people who took this country for a ride should apologize. And in this, while I demand an apology from these people, I also must acknowledge the good people of Tamil Nadu who very sensibly, far-sightedly, and very devotedly decided that this game must end here and now, and therefore have elected a group of important people who I hope will take both Tamil Nadu and the country forward in the manner in which we hoped that we would. Once again, I believe Dr. Manmohan Singh, one of the, as I said to you, persons of highest integrity, deserves from all of us, Vinod Rai may apologize or not apologize, but deserves from all of us an apology and reaffirmation of the trust and faith this country had deposed in him, and for which I believe will forever remain grateful. Thank you very much. Yes, no questions? Questions, please. See, I would imagine that he has, as a consequence of legal action, he has given this apology and admitted this in the affidavit. And he has said in the affidavit that he sincerely hopes that this will be accepted, as a sense of remorse that this will be accepted. But that's for Mr. Nirupam to decide. This is related specifically to the case that Mr. Nirupam had filed against him. But I'm sure there may be other people who can file cases or who may have filed cases. But our concern is not so much about individuals. I think individuals have suffered. But our concern is largely about the country. The country, unfortunately, doesn't file cases of defamation. But the country deserves to be told that it was not wrong. The country and the government that served the country at that time needs to be told in history that we were not wrong, that we were on the right path, but that the country was taken for a ride.
Then also considering 5 states are going to the election, and at that point this was the talking point across the country. Is this going to be a core point of campaigning for the Congress?
Well, I mean, I'd imagine that this will be, but it all depends on how much the local population connects with something of this nature. Now, Tamil Nadu has a special reason to connect with something of this nature because Tamil Nadu politics was very severely shaken by what happened and victimized. People suffered, and therefore I believe that the people of Tamil Nadu would have a special interest in this. But I'm sure that people who are enlightened and people who are concerned about the future of the country anywhere would be interested, and if nothing else, at least to make the present government accountable. The present government is in power for a variety of reasons, but one important reason was how it maligned the previous government, how it put question marks on the previous government, and made the previous government look as though the previous government had allowed a loot against the nation. Now, if this is now made to appear to be incorrect by the words that are said in the affidavit itself, and I hope you will get copies of the affidavit. You'll get copies. Mr. Mopanna will give you the copies of the affidavit. I do hope that people everywhere will make this present government accountable.
What do you feel about the current situation
See, you are asking me a very difficult question. I am a lawyer, and I cannot easily come to a conclusion that the law is weak or the law is not living up to our expectations. Some outstanding judgments have come in recent years, and I believe the most important latest exemplar is the judgment of the Supreme Court, in which a committee has specially been appointed to look into the matter of surveillance and spying, the Pegasus issue, and I hope that we will all keep faith. An outstanding former Supreme Court judge is to guide the scrutiny by that committee, and I believe that this is a major question mark put on the conduct of the government, both in what they did and how they handled it before the Supreme Court. They didn't show any honesty, transparency, or willingness to share the truth. And I believe it cannot be said that our Supreme Court is faltering. Our Supreme Court has, I must say, must be acknowledged as having taken a very far-sighted position. The same thing is happening in the Supreme Court and many of the high courts, including High Court of Allahabad, High Court of Delhi, and the High Court of Madras. Many outstanding judgments on freedom of expression, on right to move freely, on a right to express your conscience, and the manner in which UAPA was indiscriminately used against the Indian citizen. These courts have stepped in to say enough is enough. So I do acknowledge that the Supreme Court and the High Courts are today doing the best that they can, and I would just make a plea that they should continue on this path. We would be a better country if we are governed by all institutions, not by the elected government alone. The Supreme Court has its own contribution to make to democracy and fulfillment of the democratic values. Sorry? Are you talking about the Punjab election? See, I know a little bit about Punjab. There is, if I may say so, in Punjab and in Uttar Pradesh, some remarkable game changer positions have been taken by the Congress. Punjab acknowledges, and everybody else acknowledges, that Punjab has the decision in Punjab for the new Chief Minister, the selection of the new Chief Minister and his support by the party in Punjab is a game changer, because what many people thought cannot be possible has happened. That a very downright grassroots person who belongs to a community that we have constitutionally protected, but we could not provide them the kind of stature and empowerment in the political echelons today, heads Punjab government. And that is a game changer. And I believe people of Punjab are going to take this very seriously. In UP, Srimati Priyanka Gandhi has introduced another game changer. 40% of women will be fighting coming elections, 40%. Nothing about what will happen if we form government. It is a commitment made for the election itself, not after the elections. And I believe that will be another game changer in the politics of our country. 40% women in assembly. Next will be in parliament. The Prime Minister meeting good people is a good thing. It's a little unusual, but his meeting good people is a good thing. Well, you see, the point about Goa elections, as about any other part of the country, is that we take a position that whether it's the people in government or people in the opposition or ordinary people, they must pay due deference and respect to all institutions of religion or people of religious stature. We must all pay due respect to them. And that should be done equally and equitably. It should not be pick and choose for elections. It should be done because that's the way of life of India, where everybody is given an equal chance and equal opportunity. We don't want that to be intruding into elections. We don't want religious sentiments, and we don't want religious affiliations and associations intruding into elections. Because elections is about how our lives are going to be looked after, how our children will have an opportunity to grow, how our economy will be safe and secure. Elections are about this, about civic amenities, about the rights of individuals, etc. And I believe that elections must remain restricted to that. But as I said, Prime Minister meeting good people might have good influence on him.
Cancel the citizenship of those who care for Pakistan, says BJP Jammu Kashmir leader.
Cancelling of citizenship can be done only under constitutional provisions. We may dislike something, but the Constitution allows you to dislike something. The Constitution allows you to express views that other people may not like. That's the Constitution. That's the Supreme Court's judgment on UAPA as well. That's the Delhi High Court's judgment on UAPA as well. Everything that you do not like, everything that you find despicable, everything that you find wrong does not amount to it being legally wrong. It being legally wrong. So many people who believe that there is a special right to say things that may even give hurt to somebody else, as long as there is no physical, psychological hurt, the freedom of expression must go to as far an extreme as possible, is what our constitutional courts have repeatedly said. And I think that's the way an average Indian believes our life should be. Free of constraint, free of restrictions, free of what other people feel. Otherwise, the majority will never let the minority speak on any subject, on any topic. But there are behavior patterns, there are conducts that are desirable. We must all hope that people will continue in public life, in the public space, to function in a manner and behave in a manner that is pleasurable and desirable.
Mamata claims that Congress is in a compromise mode with BJP, where it has a refusal to rely on the past rally.
I don't want to say something that will become a cause for a rift between Mamata Banerjee, who is a respected Chief Minister of Bengal and who has shown her guts to fight the BJP. We respect her for that. But we are an independent political party. We may be small in her state of Bengal, but we are not small elsewhere. She must also make it very clear that Congress party is in every nook and corner of India, whereas she is, as the truth is, limited to a particular state. She may want to make forays into other states, but frankly she is limited to a particular state. So I don't think that it's very sensible to be accusing each other of being party with the BJP. We are all determined. My leaders, Mr. Rahul Gandhi and Priyanka Gandhi, have gone to the extent of saying that we will rather die than to play ball with the BJP and the RSS. Now, I can't believe such a strong statement can ever be made by anybody else or has ever been made by anybody else.
Talking about Punjab, Captain Amrinder Singh has told that Congress has humiliated me and the Congress High Command didn't support me. So how do you see this? Because elections are coming.
See, I feel sorry because we have respected Captain Amrinder Singh. Captain Amrinder Singh has served in the Indian Army. Captain Amrinder Singh has been a very valuable member of the Congress party. He led the state of Punjab to victory last time. So we respect him. But there were problems. There were internal problems with the MLAs in Punjab. And in the view of the wishes of the MLAs that the party high command has taken a particular call, we were all hoping that Amrinder Singh would be able to live with that call, that Amrinder Singh would still have a very important role to play in the party and in the country. And I still pray and hope that that will happen. He is feeling aggrieved, he's feeling very hurt. If there was anything we could do to find some resolution to that hurt, we would have done, and we would be always willing to do so. He is not an enemy, he's been a friend, and I really pray and hope that he would remain a friend. But then he has his own decision to take. Whatever decision he takes, everybody will accept it.
So by forming his own party, will there be a setback for Congress in Punjab?
I frankly don't think so. People of Punjab don't think so, that it would necessarily be a setback. It may actually wipe out whatever little is left of the BJP in Punjab. Okay, sir, thank you very much.